Welcome back to At the Buzzer. I'm your host, Dean McComb, alongside Tyler Fertel, Andrew Lumbladder, and Campbell Klein. And we are finally back after about a 4-month delay. We are finally back after one long semester of school. And to everyone who's listening to this podcast, don't worry. We're going to try our absolute best to have a more consistent uploading schedule, whether it's 1, 2, or even 3 times a month. Whatever we feel comfortable with filming, that's how many times we're going to try and get episodes out. So you guys see the title. We are going to be doing the top 10 NBA offseason acquisitions from this past 2021 NBA offseason. So we're going to go from, I believe, honorable mention 10 to 1, right? So we're going to start off with the honorable mention right here.
All right, so before we get into the actual top 10, quick honorable mention is Spencer Dinwiddie, who's currently on the Washington Wizards. They picked him up a pretty good deal, and he's been really good for them. The Wizards are currently the 7th seed right now in the East with him as their starting point guard, so he must be doing something as well. His stats for the year, averaging almost 13 points, 5 boards, 5.5 assists. He doesn't have the greatest efficiencies, but he's a good floor general and he's good at spreading the ball around to his teammates. And the Wizards are a lot better than they were last year. And Dinwiddie's had a big part in helping the Wizards get to the playoffs, or at least attempt to get to the playoffs. They're at least in the mix this year, whereas last year they barely got into the play. And we'll talk more about the Wizards later. But yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie is the honorable mention.
All right. Now at 10, we have the Cavaliers trading for Ricky Rubio. The Cavaliers traded away Taurean Prince in return for Rubio, a second-round pick, and cash considerations. And at the time, this trade looked sort of meaningless, with the Cavaliers having both Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. But early in the season, Colin Sexton fell to a season-ending injury. And since then, Rubio has really stepped up, averaging 12, 6, and 4. And I think his 20 to 25 games played without Colin Sexton. And along with that, he's acted as a really great mentor for Darius Garland. And he's led the Cavaliers to a 20-13 start, which is a lot better than most people expected.
At number 9 is also a trade that people thought was meaningless at the time. It was the Grayson Allen trade to the Milwaukee Bucks. He was traded for Sam Merrill and 2 second-round picks. I'm not sure if Sam Merrill is still on the Grizzlies roster, but I don't think he is. So the Bucks won that trade, at least in my opinion. Grayson Allen's been valuable for the Bucks this year. He started some games, but he's been more valuable off the bench, where he's been providing some valuable minutes, averaging about 12.5 points on 40% from 3. And during COVID protocol time, when some of his teammates went out, he's been really helping them and providing some more depth and keeping the Bucks as a top team in the East. So Grayson Allen coming in at number 9 in the offseason acquisitions.
So at the number 8 spot, we have Bobby Portis, who, like Grayson Allen on the Bucks, he re-signed for a 2-year, $9 million deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. And it was even reported that he turned down more money from teams such as the Heat. So he stayed loyal to the team that he helped win the championship in the previous year, and he re-signed for 2 years, $9 million. And he's been really, really great for the Bucks, providing a lot of offensive firepower. He's averaging 15.7 points per game. That's something I didn't really know. Sorry about the notification, but that's something I didn't know before researching about Portis. And he's also averaging about a steal a game. So he's doing it on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. He's been really, really good off the bench for the Bucks. As players have gone down in protocols, like Tyler's mentioned, Giannis has gone down in protocols, and he's just stepped up perfectly into the power forward role. So Portis coming in at number 8.
To add to what you're saying, Bobby Portis actually has started most, if not all, of the games of the season since Brook Lopez hasn't played since the first game of the season. So he's been starting at center before he was in protocols this past couple of weeks. And now DeMarcus Cousins is there. But like you said, he's been actually really impressive. And he's on not the greatest contract, obviously, but in the playoffs last year for the Bucks, he was great, and he's continuing that this year, scoring 16 points, which not very many people were expecting. So, yeah. Okay, so it is me at number 7, and here's a player that I miss not being on the Lakers. I'm guessing you already know who it is. It is Alex Caruso, who signed a 4-year, $37 million contract with the Chicago Bulls this past offseason. Caruso provides so much energy to the Bulls this season. He's been the backup point guard behind Lonzo Ball, and he's leading the league in steals, which is an extremely impressive stat. And as you know, or as you can tell, just based off of that, and just based off watching Caruso, he provides the intangibles and he does the dirty work on the court, and you can rely on him to play defense, and really rely on him to do all that hard work for you. So he's been a great addition to that Bulls roster, and I wish he was still on the Lakers, but hey, at least he's doing some good work for one team in the NBA. So Caruso comes in at number 7.
All right. At number 6, I'm going to continue down the Cavaliers path. They're re-signing of Jared Allen for 5 years, $100 million. I think that's a really, really strong move by them. Initially, I was pretty scared about this move. I was sort of scared to see how he would mesh with Evan Mobley, their first-round draft pick. But Jared Allen has really flourished with Evan Mobley on the court, averaging more points, rebounds, assists, steals, better field goal percentage. Really, everything has improved. He's continuing to take the steps that it takes to be a great player in this league. And similarly to Ricky Rubio, he's been a driving force that's led this team to a really surprising 20-13 start. I know a lot of people in the NBA betting world either love this team or hate this team. At one point, I think they won 13 consecutive games against the spread, which is like just unheard of. This team is constantly surprising not only NBA fans, but also Vegas, I suppose.
I'm going to add a little bit of a bold prediction really quick. Jared Allen will be an all-star this year. That's my prediction. The all-star game is in Cleveland. So maybe some Cavs fans are going to give him a little extra boost to kind of get there. But watch, Jared Allen should be an all-star this year.
All right. So to keep it moving on our list here at number 5, I'm going to talk about Lonzo Ball of the Bulls. So Lonzo got a pretty hefty contract this offseason, and it was criticized by a lot of analysts and other people. Thought maybe Lonzo hasn't proven himself yet, and maybe he's not worth the contract, but he's still getting better. And I think he's just entering his prime now. As we can see, he's really helped the Bulls this season. The Bulls are probably one of the biggest surprises of the NBA right now, 20-10, 2 seed in the East, looking like a championship contender. He's not the only player that's been affecting their win percentage from last year from the offseason, but we'll get to the rest of those guys later. Tyler already mentioned one. Lonzo's stats on the year are pretty solid: 13 points, 5 assists, 5 boards, shooting 42% from 3, the highest of his career by far. So he really worked on his jump shot over the season, and it's really paying off for the Bulls this year. And we'll see how far they make it in the playoffs.
So at the number 4 spot, we have the sort of Pelicans trades that they made during this past offseason, including acquiring Jonas Valanciunas from the Grizzlies and Devontae Graham from the Hornets. So for Valanciunas, all they had to trade was their previous center, Steven Adams, who really wasn't working out for them after they re-signed him after immediately trading for him the previous offseason, so in 2020, and Eric Bledsoe, who was just a throw-in to make the salary work. So as most NBA fans know, Valanciunas has been amazing for the Pelicans especially because Zion hasn't even played one game yet. He's averaging 19 points per game and 12 rebounds per game on incredible efficiency, shooting over 50% from the field and over 45% from 3. So obviously it's been a really, really good trade for the Pelicans. And especially when Zion comes back, I still think his numbers will go down, but his field goal percentage will definitely go up because he's not going to be taking as many shots, and he can also spread the floor. So that's a move I really, really liked from the Pelicans. And also on the Devontae Graham side of things, I believe they only had to trade 1 first-round pick for Devontae Graham, who the Hornets used on Kai Jones, who hasn't really done anything. But Devontae Graham has really helped the Pelicans' weak point guard rotation because their first-round pick, Kyra Lewis, even though he wasn't starting, he was still their backup. He went down, and Devontae Graham has definitely been carrying almost all of the point guard work in that Pelicans backcourt. So he's been really, really impressive for them.
All right, so moving on to number 3 right now, we got Kyle Lowry sign and trade with the Heat. He also got a huge bag from the Heat, but it's definitely been worth it. The Heat are one of the best teams in the East right now, sitting at the 4th seed, only 2.5 games out of first place, and they're going to make a push for the 1 seed by the end of the year. You already know with the Heat. They're definitely going to be a championship contender, and Lowry brings a lot of, grit, toughness, winning culture to the Heat. He's been a pure point guard for them, a nice floor general, sets up guys like Duncan Robinson, PJ Tucker, Tyler Hero, gets them open shots. He's really easy to play off of. He can spot up, and he can also, get his own shot off the dribble. He's been really good with Bam in the pick and roll this year. His stats don't really blow your mind. He's only averaging 14 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, but he's averaging 8 assists. So just shows, his floor general skills, how he gets his teammates involved. Shooting splits aren't great. 83% from the line, though, is pretty good. But even though, his stats don't pop off the screen, his impact is definitely really valuable to the Heat. And I think he's going to probably make them go farther in the playoffs than they did last year. So we'll see how it plays out. But Kyle Lowry definitely was a huge addition for the Heat.
And kind of adding to that quickly, he also brings the Heat have a kind of reputation as being a really intense defensive team. And Kyle Lowry just adds to that. He's a good defender too. So he just kind of helps with their defensive ambitions and also is good on the offensive side of the court. So, yeah.
All right. I have the second biggest win of the offseason going to the Wizards and their trading of Russell Westbrook and 2 second-round picks for Montrezl Harrell, KCP, and Kuzma. The Wizards right now sit at 17 and 16. And this is a lot better than people expected them to be. I think people expected them to be really lower tier, winning, 40% of their games, but they're above 500 right now. And this trade, none of these guys' stats are really popping off the screen. None of these guys will be all-stars. None of these guys are doing anything crazy. But all of these guys are young, all 26 to 28, I believe. And these guys all are just play really hard every single night, which I know is something the Lakers miss. And another win for this trade is that the Wizards got rid of Russell Westbrook, who despite the numbers, despite the 28 and 8 that Westbrook's averaging this year, I think anyone who's watched a Lakers game can agree that Russell Westbrook is having the worst season of all time. He is really not performing well for the Lakers, despite the numbers. And the Wizards were lucky to get some assets out of it before having to deal with that.
Yeah, I think Kuzma was the biggest winner in that trade personally. He's actually been allowed to flourish in that Wizards offense, which is something that he didn't really do in the Lakers offense. So now ending out the top 10 at number 1 is the third Bulls player on our roster. It is DeMar DeRozan, who got a 3-year, $85 million contract from the Bulls. Obviously, that's a pretty big contract for any NBA player, but still, I think the Bulls are very happy they made that choice to give DeRozan all that money. He's averaging about 27 points, which is amazing for him, and he's 100% going to be an all-star. The question is, will he be an all-star starter or a reserve? That is up to the fan vote, most likely. So DeMar DeRozan has been probably the Bulls' best player this year. He's really he's been great alongside Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. And as we've talked about, that Bulls team is thriving. They are a team in the East that is going to be in the playoffs and is going to be competing for the championship. So DeMar DeRozan is a big part of that, and he comes in at number 1 on our list.
And adding something about DeMar DeRozan before we finish this episode up, I saw a tweet that really brought my attention to it, and it was that DeMar DeRozan's numbers are almost identical to Kobe's MVP numbers, which is absolutely absurd because if you actually watch DeMar DeRozan, he takes a lot of tough mid-range contested shots, just like Kobe is known to do. But DeMar DeRozan has just been absolutely stellar for the Bulls. So it was really an amazing pickup, and he's basically the main reason why they're so good this year. But that was our top 10 list for the NBA offseason acquisitions this past 2021 offseason. It's around midseason, so we thought it would be fitting to do an episode on this. And yeah, so that'll do it for today's episode. Make sure you follow us on the podcast platform you're listening on today. whether it's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And also make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at AT Buzzer Podcast. So we'll see you next time.